Actor Robert Carradine has died at the age of 71. He's known for starring in Revenge of the Nerds and The Long Riders. In a statement to Deadline, Carradine's family says that he took his own life after struggling with bipolar disorder. They hope his story can alleviate the stigma around mental illness. So joining us now is concierge psychologist Dr. Urmi Jani. Dr. Jani, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
First, let's just explain what bipolar disorder is.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a mental illness that is characterized by really big mood swings, really big mood shifts. People experience really high highs, which is known as mania, and then oftentimes it's followed right after by depression, so really low lows.
And are there different types?
There are. There's actually 3 different types. So there's bipolar 1, which is basically you're mostly in a manic state. So you're feeling euphoric, you're feeling high. The other part of being in a manic state is also sometimes you're just incredibly irritable. Like more so than your typical like I'm annoyed or angry at the world. It's just like just any little thing grates at you. You're just so upset all the time. And then that flips to then bipolar 2, which is mania followed by depression. So it can cycle through in a couple of weeks. So maybe for a week you're manic and then for a week you're depressed. Sometimes it's 2 weeks on and off. It just depends. And then the third type is a little, we call it like baby bipolar. It's called cyclothymia disorder. And that's when you have both mania and depression, but in like much less severe sort of severity.
Yeah, I think what was, what caught our eye about this particular situation with Keredine was the fact that he took his life.
Yeah. That
he had bipolar, and when you think bipolar, you don't necessarily think, that someone would be suicidal. Why is that?
I think that because we just, bipolar in the popular media and everything, it's known as manic depression, right?
Yeah.
So when you're manic and you're so euphoric and you're high and you're hyper and you're excited, you just think, oh, this person's so happy. When you see them kind of walking around, they're on top of the world, right? You don't see them when they're depressed, because when they're depressed, they're just reclusive. They're probably in their home, they're not getting out of bed, they're not brushing their teeth, they're not taking care of themselves.
Yes.
And so that part of it is what's lesser seen by people. When people are just really magnanimous and they're excited and they're excitable and they're shopping and they're, just boisterous, right? That mania, that is equated as, oh, look, that person's doing great, they're really happy.
What causes it?
It's caused by a couple of different things, right? So every person is a little bit different, but one of the biggest risk factors is just genetics.
Wow.
Having somebody in the family who's had a history of bipolar disorder means that, you are at a higher risk of getting it. But then what's interesting, and what's actually really interesting in this case in particular, he was only diagnosed with it about 20 years ago.
Yeah, at least 20 years.
So, and he's, I think, in his 70s.
Right.
So this was like fairly late onset diagnosis. Most people get diagnosed kind of in adolescence, early adulthood. And so what can cause it are environmental factors. He said, and it's out there in the literature, that it was the death of his brother that really set him off. So like stressful triggers, environmental factors, financial like insecurity, things like that, substance abuse can also cause some bipolar. But a lot of it is deeply rooted in the genetics.
Oh, interesting. All right, Dr. Jani, we appreciate your insight. Thank you.